One of my favorite worship ministers was a gentleman who led worship at the church that I attended when I was in college. He was in his 60s when I knew him, and he faithfully led worship every Sunday, week in and week out, even through a cancer diagnosis and treatment, up until the final weeks of his life before he passed away. He left a lasting legacy in my life and many others in that church, and I want to be like that. I want to faithfully serve the Lord as long as He will allow me to, up until my final breath. But that may not happen. You and I may not always be able to lead in the ways that we are currently. And so we need to pour into the next generation so that there are faithful worship ministry leaders that come behind us. It boosts our team now, and it builds the church for the future. Many of our new volunteers in the worship ministry have come from our middle school and high school and college ministries. These students have been part of an intentional strategy of ministry where we pour into them and strengthen them and their skills and instill in them the confidence of worship ministry leadership in their ministries with an eye towards serving in the main church worship ministry in the future. So today we're going to talk about the philosophy behind that and how we've accomplished it at our church. We start with Psalm 78, verses 5 through 7. He established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which He commanded our fathers to teach to their children, that the next generation might know them, the children yet unborn, and arise and tell them to their children, so that they should set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep His commandments. We have an obligation in our churches to build up the next generation, to teach them to know and love and serve the Lord, so that, as the Scripture says, they should set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep His commandments. And certainly this is something we want to do in our worship ministries to build up the future ministry leaders of our churches. And so just wanted to talk through the strategy that we've accomplished in our church. We built what we call a pipeline, and this is an opportunity for these students in middle school, high school, and college ministries to serve their peers by leading worship in their age-specific ministries. So our middle schools, they have a middle school worship band that leads them in worship. Our high school has a high school worship band that leads them in worship. Our college ministry has college ministry students that lead them in worship. And then eventually, some of them are able to join the main church worship ministry and serve in that way. And so working with our high school and middle school pastors, developing this pipeline and this strategy has been greatly beneficial to all of our ministries. And so what we did, I sat down with those pastors, the children's middle school, high school, and college pastors, and we talked about our goals and the current landscapes of our ministry, identified students that could potentially participate. We held auditions, we had interviews and got to know them, and then began to have some workshops to help them develop their skills, teaching them how to work together as a band, how to read a chord chart, how to sing together, how to harmonize, how to blend, how to work together as a team. Then we gave them opportunities to serve. Like I said, they serve in their ministries, in their age-graded ministries. The middle schoolers lead their middle school peers in worship, high school as well. We also gave them some opportunities in the main church. We have a couple of events on our calendar. Our annual Thanksgiving service, we have a great big meal together. We have a worship service, and we ask the students oftentimes to help lead worship in those services. Our women's conference, multiple times, some of our students have helped lead worship for that. And so these events are a little bit less pressure than a Sunday morning, a little bit more forgiving, to help them to gain some confidence in their leadership and in their abilities of leading worship. Now, this is not without its challenges. If you think about youth ministry, there's a constant turnover. 8th graders are going to move up out of middle school ministry into high school. High school seniors are going to graduate and going to move off to college. So there's a little bit of a rebuilding each year within these age-specific ministries. And certainly in the worship ministry, oftentimes by the time they get to us and they're ready to serve with us, we're just getting to know them and just getting comfortable serving together, they move off to college. So it is a challenge, and that's something to be aware of. But it's certainly worth the investment in those ministries, in our student ministries, as well as our worship ministry, and the future of the church, whether that's our church or another church that these students might go off to serve in. So there are some challenges, but it's worth the investment. As worship ministry leaders, we're constantly thinking about the next Sunday. It's a challenge to continue to lead worship week in and week out, along with other responsibilities that we have in life and in the church. But if we can get our heads above water and think about the future, pouring into the next generation is a way that we can boost our ministries now, our student ministries and our worship ministries, strengthen the church, give the church a very vivid example of what it means to pour into the next generation, and it is well worth it. I certainly want to be like that gentleman that I told you about and serve until I can't anymore. That may not be the case. You and I, again, we may not always be able to do this. But we can rest assured that if we pour into the next generation and faithfully invest in them, it will be well worth it for the church. We're pouring into the future pastors, elders, deacons, musicians, and worship ministry leaders of the church. It is the future of the church, and it is well worth the investment.